it be, let it be. Whisper words away.
All right.
Let it be.
We are live on YouTube. Woohoo. All right. Well, I'm going to turn this over to Lorri Coburn, my friend. This mic is all yours. And I will put the chat room in here.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, hi, Regis, and hi, Dev, and hi, Lynn, and Zulma was here, so I don't know where she went, if she's coming back or not, but I'll say hi to people in the chat room when I see the chat room thing. Okay, you're putting it on now. Anyway, happy Monday, everybody. I'm going to read from lesson 189. I feel the love of God within me now. And here's the journey through the workbook with Ken Wapnick that I used the commentary from. Oh, there's the chat room. Thank you. Hi, Karen. I saw you jump into the meeting last night for about 2 seconds and then you were gone. We had a good meeting last night. We read the preface of the course, or what it says, and I hadn't gone over that in a long time, and it was really nice. So reading, I feel the love of God within me now. I'm just going to start with that famous paragraph that people always talk about, paragraph 7. Simply do this: be still and lay aside all thoughts of what you are and what God is, all concepts you have learned about the world, all images you hold about yourself. Empty your mind of everything it thinks is either true or false, or good or bad, of every thought it judges worthy, and all the ideas of which it is ashamed. Hold on to nothing. Do not bring with you one thought the past has taught, nor one belief you ever learned before from anything. Forget this world, forget this course, and come with wholly empty hands unto your God. No. Oh, okay. Something just happened to the screen there.
And at that very low education rate, give an example of that by not knowing what white nationalism is or
I'm hearing something in the background. I don't know what it is. Okay. The reason I'm doing this lesson 189, I feel the love of God within me now, where it says, hold on to nothing. Do not bring with you one thought the past has taught, nor one belief you ever learned before from anything. Well, Rod, my partner I lived with for 16 years, made his transition on Thursday, and I had wanted it to happen for the last 5 months because he had strokes and he was unable to talk and unable to move. So I was upset way back when that he didn't call in the doctor down in Mexico that would have given him a shot and helped him leave. And he didn't call in hospice, and I had given his daughter the information for the doctor and for the hospice, and they ended up bringing him back to Michigan, where it looked initially like he might get better, and then he didn't. And so he went into hospice, and once he made the decision to go into hospice last Tuesday or Monday, within 3 days he was gone, because it was his decision. It was his decision. And I never could understand why Rod was making the decision to continue staying in the body or appear to stay in the body. I had to just totally forgive everything and let it be, where I don't know what anything is for. I don't understand anything. It's the ego world. I kind of figured it must be something with his daughter that he was doing, because I knew he could have made that decision way back when, and I didn't know why he didn't. But thanks, Karen and Lynn, for those blessings to Rod and his family. Anyway, this hold on to nothing, this has been a different experience for me, because it hit me like a freight train when I heard that he died. And that's obviously the ego believing in death, because I don't know, it wouldn't hit me like that if I didn't. then I had a couple bad days, and then yesterday I was fine again, which is really great compared to what it would have been in the past. And one of the things is that Rod always told me he would come to me. And when he transitioned, and I didn't even know it had happened yet, my sister was outside, and I live with my sister. She came in and she goes, an eagle just flew over the house and then flew back. And then my brother-in-law went out, and she goes, so the eagle made another pass. And she goes, that was Rod. She goes, I think he's gone. Well, I hadn't even known. And then I found out, yes, he was gone. So thanks, Regis, and thanks, Karen. So he came and said goodbye, hello, goodbye, whatever. But I knew that he would come to me in a different kind of way. And at the same time, I had conflict because I don't want anything special. And I recognized that thinking about Rod as having been the second most significant person in my life next to my dad was still making him special. And I didn't want that. I don't want that, because I want the peace of God. And to want the peace of God, you can't compromise and still see. You recognize the flesh, or you see this, you see the flesh, or you recognize the spirit. There's no compromise at all in this. And even with thoughts of your past. And it's been very strong with me lately, is I just want to be completely done with my past. And it doesn't mean memories won't come up or whatever, but Rod is a thought in my mind. And when he and I moved down to the Bahamas, when I got a job in the Bahamas, I told him I missed my cat. And he said to me, well, where's your cat? And I said, well, my cat's in my heart. He goes, no, your cat's in your mind. He goes, because everything's in your mind. And when we know that the body was never born and the body never dies, then Rod was always just a thought in my mind. Not just a thought. He's a loving thought in my mind, a symbol of unconditional love. And everything's in our mind. So I don't want any specialness, because love is love is love. And everyone is love. Everything is love. And I'm getting to that place now where I can experience everything as love. So this experience with him transitioning and the dropping of the body has been different, because I don't want to make an idol out of death, or an idol out of the body, or an idol out of the relationship he and I had, which had its really good parts. It was a holy relationship. And it was also an ego special relationship in a lot of ways. So I've been focusing on this, simply do this. Be still and lay aside all thoughts of what you are and what God is. All concepts you have learned about the world. All images you hold about yourself. Empty your mind of everything it thinks is either true or false, or good or bad. Of every thought it judges worthy, and all the ideas of which it is ashamed. Hold on to nothing. Do not bring with you one thought the past has taught, nor one belief you ever learned before from anything. Forget this world, forget this course, and come with wholly empty hands unto your God. Yeah, Karen, rest in peace is a blessing for the living, not the dead, because rest comes from waking, not from sleeping. And that's the whole thing. Is I feel this. I feel that a big transformation is happening inside me, and it's just a letting go of everything. Just like this paragraph says, just let go of everything. I don't know anything. I do not know anything. I don't know what anything is for. I can have all my stories around Rod and around the relationship we had, and around the relationship with his daughter, and how that relationship interfered with our relationship. And none of it means anything. It just doesn't mean anything. And the fact that I appeared to be in a relationship with him in form, that doesn't mean anything either, the amount of time, that how good it was, how bad it was. It just, I recognize that any of those thoughts that I attach to are going to be chains keeping me in hell. And I don't have to fight them when they come up. I just notice them. And I'm very aware of not believing my thoughts anymore, just not believing them and not attaching onto them. And so, as I was saying, this process of this grief process is different than any other grief process I've ever had. It's freer, it's easier. I was exhausted on Friday and Saturday. He passed on Thursday. I had to take naps, and I don't usually take naps, but I remember that from when my partner died 6 years ago, and I took naps all the time for like 4 months. I was on the floor, and at that time, getting over that in 4 months felt like this incredible accomplishment, because for me, prior to that, grief took a whole lot longer than that. Yeah, Karen, it is everything. Noticing and not believing. And you wrote the belief, the BE, capital L, capital I, capital E, the lie in the middle of all beliefs. And that's what this says. Let go of all your beliefs. And it's so funny because I was at church yesterday, and there's a grief group there that I commented to the leader. I said, I heard some good things about your grief group. And she goes, oh, cool, and everything. And I told her that I used to facilitate grief support groups and teach grief education classes for hospice. And I didn't tell her this, but I don't believe any of that anymore, except the one thought that was correct was that grief is like your thumbprint. It's different for everybody, and everyone will experience it a little bit differently. And she asked me to help facilitate that group. And I said, sure. I don't have to believe it to be of service or to have compassion for people who still do believe in death and believe in loss. So as these thoughts of Rod being gone, I mean, so the ego thoughts would come up of, oh my God, Rod is gone. I'll never see him again. And my experience with my loved ones who have gone that are right here, right on my shoulder. And I talk to them all the time, I still miss their bodies. I still miss their bodies, because when you're in a body, it's nice to have another body. It just is. I'm not going to deny that. I just can't deny that. I love hugging my grandbabies. I love it. I love hugging people. I love that I'm in a new relationship where we have physical contact. I love that. And I'm sure to me, it's like eating and drinking. We wouldn't tell anybody, don't eat and don't drink while you appear to be in a body. You don't have to deny the body that way, but you don't have to believe in it either. And so that lack of belief in it gives a little bit of looseness and some sense of detachment. So we're not as devastated or destroyed when we don't get our way, or we don't get the food we want, or we don't get the affection that we want, or the person that we want, or the house that we want, or the job, or whatever, or the health. We just don't have to attach. So I'm grateful for this. And then I found myself looking, thanks, Karen. I found myself looking for a mystical experience to happen, like, oh, how is Rod going to come to me? And how is it going to be not specific to his and my relationship, because that's ego, but how is it going to be vast and open me up to the oneness of the universe and oneness of all things? And I realized that looking for that was also ego and expecting that was ego. And so now I've just let go of everything. And whether I have any contact from Rod, it doesn't really matter if I have contact with him or not. I noticed myself wanting to tell my Course in Miracles group that I got a message from Rod, and then recognizing, oh, there's some more ego specialness. So one thing that was really, really cool about his transitioning was that I got the word on Tuesday that he had decided to go into hospice. So I'm here on Mondays. And so this was Tuesday. And I like to start the day by saying, I wonder what amazing, incredible shifts in perception are going to happen today. You know, how am I going to see the world differently today? Well, that morning I got this new perception of, because being in this new relationship and yet so not wanting it to be about the body and not wanting it to have the ego specialness that I've had in previous relationships, it's almost like, well, what do I do with this? What do I do with these sexual feelings? What do I do with this person that I see as a man? When really there's no man, there's no women. Well, how do I even be in a relationship when I know everything is ego? So I had this shift in perception that was so cool, that was like, you can just play with this. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to carry any of your old ego stuff into this. You can just play with this. And it was like, I can play. I can actually play. I can play in a relationship instead of making it all serious, because I've always made relationships incredibly serious, and I had to do them right. And that was part of my awakening path, and I had to forgive them. And it was like play. Oh my gosh. So it was so strong, and I didn't want to forget it. So I was driving and I pulled the car over to write it down. And I wrote down the date, and I realized the date would have been the 40th anniversary of my first marriage, if I would have stayed married. And then it wasn't until later that night that I realized, oh my gosh, 40, that's like 40 for Moses, 40 years in the wilderness, and then Jesus, the 40 days in the wilderness in order to come out and then be transformed. And so it's like, oh my gosh, this is too cool. This symbolism of the 40 and the, letting go of the old and transforming into spirit. And what was also interesting was that on the 10-year anniversary of what would have been my marriage, so that would be 30 years ago, I had a prophetic dream about my second husband and my and Rod, and my relationship with Rod. And I didn't even know for 7 years after the dream what the dream meant. It just kept rolling around in my head. And it was like, once I got with Rod, it was like, that's what the dream means. That's what the dream means. So here was this thing. And then it was like, all of it's a dream. All of it is just a dream. It's like all the relationships, all our past is just the dream. It's just the dream. It's just the dream. And I could feel the surreal aspect of it. And when we look at like, well, where did the person go? Where did they go? That feels surreal. And you can see the dream in that. So I'm grateful for this experience. I'm really, really grateful, and grateful for the little spirit winks like the 40 to say, you can lighten up, you can play, you can have fun. You don't have to do anything like you used to do. And I am having fun in this new relationship. It's so different than anything I have ever had. Anything. Hey, Sharon. Right. Nigel, you can't lose God. You cannot lose God. So lesson 189, I feel the love of God within me now. Ken Wapnick says, as I mentioned at the beginning of lesson 188, this lesson also centers on light. The real world, the reflection of heaven's light, is a major focus of the discussion as well. Paragraph 1, lines 1 to 3. There is a light in you the world cannot perceive, and with its eyes you will not see this light, for you are blinded by the world, yet you have eyes to see it. Ken says, truth can never be seen through the body's eyes. We perceive its light when we identify with Jesus's thought system instead of our own. for his vision is independent of physical sight. In the previous lesson, I quoted a passage that is the source of these opening lines, and I repeat its first 5 sentences that describe the light of the real world, seen only with the mind's healed eye. This is a quote from chapter 13, section 6. There is a light this world cannot give, yet you can give it as it was given you. And as you give it, it shines forth to call you from the world and follow it. For this light will attract you as nothing in this world can do. And you will lay aside the world and find another. And Ken says, indeed, the purpose of the body's eyes was not to see the light of forgiveness that heralds the real world, which is found through Christ's vision. So the body's eyes will never see the real world. The body's eyes can't see the light. But when we see the light in somebody, when we see the trees shimmering, when we see those little light things around objects, when we just know, when we don't believe the lies, when we don't believe what our body's eyes are seeing, we are seeing with Christ's vision. And that's what we want, because seeing with the body's eyes is just painful. And you know, what's funny is last week I talked about those bee stings. Well, another thing happened that next day was I got a 3rd bee sting. It was like, oh my gosh, I thought I could have gotten this lesson from just 2 bee stings, but apparently I needed another one. And this one was odd too, because it was on the playground with the little kids, with my grandkids and a bunch of other little kids around. All of a sudden, these bees, these yellow jackets started flying up, and one flew up into my crop pants and around my knee, and I couldn't get it out. And I swore, and then I went, oh, I'm sorry, parents. I just swore in front of your little kids. And I was trying to shake it out of my pants. And I was like, I can't take my pants off. If I was by myself, I would have just taken my pants off right there to get it out. But I couldn't. And so I ended up having to pull the fabric of the pants out and smush the bee inside my pants. and it was like, oh, and then that just swelled up really bad and made it really hard to sleep. And I don't know if it came to me last week. It must have, but now it's just like, oh, well, this world does hold nothing that I want, because it's like that song by the Four Tops. You're sweet like a honeybee, but like a honeybee stings. You've gone and left my heart in pain. And so it's like, yeah, relationships, when they're coming from the ego bodily level, they just leave you in pain. And one of the things I've always had was I've always been afraid of losing a relationship. Once I get a relationship with a man that I'm attached to, my biggest fear is I'm going to lose him. And so, of course, that's come up with this new person I'm seeing. And I just keep going, stop. You can never lose anybody. You can never, the person is not even a person. He's not even a body. He's a thought in my mind, reflecting my healed mind. And so far, this relationship reflects the healed mind more than any I've ever had, because it's different. It's different. I can't get away with any ego attack thoughts. I feel a peace and a sense of rightness and okayness with this that's devoid of the ego needing to jump in. And we haven't even slept together. I mean, that's a huge miracle in and of itself. Haven't even done that. And it's been a couple months now. It's like, okay, all right, maybe it's the age, maybe it's being older and don't need to do that so much, but it's also very conscious in terms of not going into making the body the center of everything. And so it's been great, because not being so involved with the body has allowed those ego attachment thoughts and expectations. And is this relationship going to look like this and look like that? And I just watch them come up and just release them, release them. And I write down things on sticky notes, and I write them all down. And then after I reread them, and I keep them on my desk, and my desk, it usually looks completely trashed because there's just sticky notes all over everything. And I've had a lot of them lately, and a lot of them have had to do with this relationship in particular, or relationships in general. Thanks, Karen. And so I just went through them all this morning, because I go through them about once a week and see, have I integrated that lesson? Have I integrated that message, these new thoughts? And I threw, 3/4 of them away, because now they're integrated. So these fears about the relationship, or knowing that everything is okay, and not making it about the body, and being only the Christ and seeing only the Christ, I feel like those are in me now, and I don't need the sticky notes to remind me. So that felt really good this morning, to throw all those sticky notes away. And that's just a difference in this relationship. Thank you, God, because I've asked for the holy relationship. And in chapter 17, section 5, the healed relationship, it says that when you give a relationship to the Holy Spirit for its purpose, then everything unlike love is going to come up, and all hell will break loose for the beginning of the relationship. Well, he and I have not had that. It hasn't been crazy. I have had sleepless nights where I've been stirred up and scared, and projected onto the body like these bee stings, and projected that the bee stings needed the prednisone, or the steroid cream, and the cough that I had when he asked me out, what I had for a month turned into this cough that wouldn't stop, and I needed the prednisone. So it's like, oh my gosh, this is new, this is different, but it's being projected. I think I said this last week, it's projected onto the body, because I'm not projecting it onto my partner. I'm not picking fights. I'm not behaving in the relationship like I would have in the past. And the fear is much, much less than it was in the last relationship. So I don't know if, as we go on, if it's all kinds of craziness is gonna come up, but even if it does, I just know that it'll clear out way faster, and it doesn't have to be that chaotic, crazy, weird stuff. I've done that, been there, done that, and I just don't need it. And then another thought, this was another new perception, a new thought that came up, was that I was holding this thought that I am afraid of the love of God, and I'm afraid of the love of God coming through this man. But I was getting it confused, like, well, it's an ego, it's a body, so it's a man, so it's an ego. And then it's like, but wait a minute, I don't know how to do this. Well, the thought came up, is like, you can be done with that thought. Yes, A Course in Miracles teaches us that we are afraid of the love of God, but you know what? Don't hold that anymore. You're not. Just say, there is no part of me that is afraid of the love of God, because I thought that maybe I was projecting all these things onto the body, the bee stings and the cough that wouldn't go away. I mean, 24/7. I was like, oh my God. My sister was going, go to the doctor, go to the doctor. I go, I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't want to go to the doctor. I finally did. So I thought, okay, I'm projecting onto the body these fears instead of projecting it into the relationship dynamics. But, I don't need to do that. I just don't need to do that. Because why? God's love is all there is. And that's something I'm feeling really strongly with Rod's transition. God's love is all there is. I feel it. I know it in my being. The bee stings were love. And when I was pondering this third bee sting, I'm going, that was an expression of love to get me to see something. And it's still not completely formulated. And maybe it never will be. And maybe I don't need to understand anything except God's love is all there is. And feel that and open to that and be in it and experience it. Yep, Karen, love is all that matters and all that exists. And I don't have to struggle and fight anymore. And I don't have to go through Lynn, maybe you're just sweet. Oh, thank you. Thank you. You know, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. That's the only part of that song I need to keep. You know, you're sweet like the honeybee. Yeah, that fits. That fits because it makes me cry. And yeah, maybe that's all there needs to be anymore. I don't need this belief that I have a fear of God. I don't need this belief that the relationship has to go to hell, you know, once we start getting more involved or more committed, or they're done. It's just, it feels so much like I felt so strongly, like with that 40 years, and that symbol of it's all gone, it's all past. And there's a part of me, you're putting a honeybee up there, that it feels like, it just feels really like it's done. And one of my clients was commenting, and I think I said this on Pal Talk a while ago. She goes, it feels like a loss. Letting go of my ego identity feels like a loss. And that's how I've experienced it too. And it's, for me, not so much a loss of Lorri, so much as a loss to me of specific people, the people that I love, that Lorri loved and was attached to, you know, family members and close friends. And I love them all. And I don't want to let go of those. And yet making them specific is just doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. And that's what makes me more sane in this current relationship. Because for a long time, I have known and felt that every man I've been with is the same. And yet, even with that, knowing that mostly, there would still be the ego part that wants to grab in and attach and want something. And in the preface that we were reading yesterday that said, what it says under that section, it says, love is incapable of needing or wanting anything. Yeah. Love eyes, right, Lynn? And Karen, you said the only thing that gets lost when you lose the ego is the need to be a victim. And that's a quote from Ken Wapnick. And I had my friend Jan, who transitioned this last year as well. I said to him, he says, love is everything. And he goes, but love's not in the body. You will never see love in the body. And he was the one that pointed out that chapter 25 introduction. You see the Christ everywhere except in bodies. And I said, well, what about when you see the Christ in someone's eyes? You know, there's a song in Unity, I behold the Christ in you. So what about that? You see the soul in somebody's eyes. And he said, you just think you're seeing it in the body. You're really seeing beyond the body when you see the Christ in somebody else. But the ego wants to tell you that you're seeing it in the body. So you are seeing it with Christ vision. So when lovers look into each other's eyes, or when friends look into each other's eyes deeply, and you see that love and you see that Christ, it's not the body, but the ego is going to tell you it's the body because it seems like it is. And that's what this first paragraph in lesson 189 says. There is a light in you the world cannot see. And with its eyes, the world's eyes or the body's eyes, you will not see this light. For you are blinded by the world, yet you have eyes to see it. You have that third eye that sees truth. And you know it. It's more of a knowing than a seeing. It's a knowing. It's a knowing. And that's something that was interesting at the beginning of this relationship, this new relationship I'm in. There was just this knowing, or this sense of rightness about it. And how long that will last, you know, tomorrow, 10 years, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm not supposed to know. And I don't, and that's going into the ego and into time. But there was a sense of rightness that I felt about it, in spite of the ego voices in myself and actually in a couple other people. Ego voices jump up saying, whoa, whoa, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I'm like, yeah, but Spirit is telling me all is well. And as I've listened to Spirit and pledged every single day, I am committed to seeing only the Christ in you, not your body, because it gets challenging when I get sexually attracted. But committed to only being the Christ and only seeing the Christ. And now, so that'll be interesting once we do become sexually involved. I don't know if I shouldn't predict that it's going to be a problem or be a challenge. Maybe it will just be natural and not an issue. It doesn't have to be an issue. It can just be sweet without the stings. Thanks for the heart, Karen. Paragraph 1, lines 4 to 7. It is there for you to look upon, the light. It was not placed in you to be kept hidden from your sight. This light is a reflection of the thought we practice now. To feel the love of God within you is to see the world anew, shining in innocence, alive with hope, and blessed with perfect charity and love. Ken comments, the ego hides the light by making real the darkness of guilt. When we ask for help to choose against the unreal, we enable ourselves to see the world anew and attain the real world. Jesus reminds us again that this attainment does not involve anything behavioral, for it results simply from the mind's release of the ego's thoughts. Well, there's a good validation for what I was saying earlier, that I didn't want this to be about behavior or specialness or specifics. Any message that I might get from Rod, I didn't want it to be about behavior. Any issues with or any interaction with this new person I'm dating, I don't want it to be about that. Maybe I shouldn't phrase it that way of I don't want it to be that. Maybe I should just phrase it in a positive way of I choose that it be a holy relationship. I choose that it be of the Christ rather than reaffirming what I don't want. Looking on the world from outside the dream, we realize that what we saw before was illusory. And haven't we seen that? Haven't all of us who are course students for any amount of time at all, don't we all look on our whole life and go, oh my gosh, it was all nothing. It was all a dream. I was chasing a dream, right? We have to get to that place. Everyone has to get to that place where you go, oh my gosh, everything that I made important, everything that I made real wasn't. But what is real? What is real is what's left. This love, this light, this peace, this moment is real. And it's very, very real. And it's the only real thing. And it's the only thing we want. And so I feel like I'm going through another period of disorientation, with the transition of Rod's body, or the dropping of the body, which of course was never there to begin with, was always in my mind. But it's shaking my foundation again, which is good. I'm glad. Because then it expands and opens into more love. So looking on the world from outside the dream, we realize what we saw before was illusory. Thus, the real world comes through accepting the Holy Spirit's correction, his vision of our eternal innocence, for our sleeping sight that sees only the ephemeral. Here's a quote from chapter 12, section 6. Correction is for all who cannot see. To open the eyes of the blind is the Holy Spirit's mission, for he knows that they have not lost their vision, but merely sleep. He would awaken them from the sleep of forgetting to the remembering of God. Christ's eyes are open, and he will look upon whatever you see with love if you accept his vision as yours. He, Christ, looks quietly on the real world, which he would share with you because he knows of the Father's love for him. And knowing this, he would give you what is yours. And in also chapter 12, I think it's section 7, the next section, it's when you want only love, you will see nothing else. And that's a mantra that I've been saying for a long time, and it's been coming more and more and more. So thanks, Karen, for the let it be in the heart, and Sharon, your comments. It really does make you cry tears of joy, because a lot of the tears I've been shedding, I see them as just a release of energy. They don't have to mean anything. They don't have to mean grief anymore. They don't have to mean, I hate this world because everything dies, like it would have meant in the past. But as I was crying this morning, it felt like the tears were just an expression of love. And Sharon, I know you're a lot like that, like we both are. We cry. That's how things come out of this body. And the tears are good. I don't want to hold them back or intellectualize them. So I was feeling the love that I felt from Rod. Yeah, Sharon, big crier. Yeah, and Karen, tears can be very cathartic. I was going over the past, of course, which is the illusion, but it can be a symbol of love. And all the ways that Rod loved me. All the ways. I mean, that man loved me, I think, more than any person in my entire life. Again, maybe except my dad, but sometimes I think even more than my dad. It was so unconditional with him. And what a blessing. What a wonderful gift. And it's actually with the dropping of his body. Yeah, Karen, how lucky to have that. But with the dropping of his body, I can feel this sense of now I get to be that love that he showed me. So instead of needing to get it from someone outside who loved me through thick and thin, Rod loved me through all my crap, all the depression that I had, all the issues I had with him, with other relationships. This man, issues I used to have with money, this man just loved me nonstop. And if I can think of that as just even this much of God's love, that Rod's love was just a smidgen of God's love and open to God's love. And receive that and don't push it away, and don't try to make it look like a certain thing. It is beautiful, Sharon. It's just so beautiful. And again, it's a feeling and it's a knowing. Yeah, love never dies. And be the love that you are. And I feel that. I feel like I'm more loving to everyone, and it's not Lorri by any means, because we know the ego is judgmental. But to see that love coming out with everybody now, and how, I don't know, it's just amazing. What better gift could there be? And for it again for me to learn that Rod went into hospice on that 40th anniversary, and here I am pulling over the car and writing it down about, I get to play with my relationship now. I get to play. I get to play with my primary relationship instead of making it mean that I'm okay, or that I've attained heaven in this world, or that the relationship is perfect, or I've finally done it right, or I mean, because the relationship was always my barometer of how are you? Well, it was always, how's my relationship? It was my idol. It was my addiction, my special substitute for God. And it's not now. It's not. As much as I care about this person, it's very interesting because I had a realization a couple weeks ago, and I might have said it here or not, but that I cannot love him any more than I love him right now, because love is love is love, and we are love. How, if you think that I can fall in love with you, that's ego. There's something about you that I like, or there's something about you that I'm getting more attached to, or something about you that I think, oh, now, well, we can be partners. We can be long-term partners. You check all the boxes, so I love you more, right? No, I can't love him or lose him ever. And I can't love him any more than I love him at this moment, because it has nothing to do with his personality or how he treats me or anything, which he happens to treat me very beautifully, actually, but it has nothing to do with that. And I had seen this one recommendation that get rid of all your old relationship stuff. Don't hang on to your old relationships. Don't bring that energy into your new relationship. And I do agree with that in terms of any ego stuff, because I used to always just compare my relationships with each other, and I like this about this guy and this about that, and all that ego stuff. But on my screensaver, I have a lot of pictures, and a lot of them are men that I have loved and been in relationship with. And I decided not to take that down. At first I took it all down, and then I actually put it back up. You know why? Because they're just symbols of love. They're not special. They're not special men or special relationships. They're symbols of love. So why should I take them down? Even taking them down is almost like making them special in a different kind of way. Special hate or a special rejection of, oh, you can't have that because now you're in love with somebody else. And we don't want that, right? And specifically, I had deleted all of the photos that I had of my last partner. And then way back in some emails or some text messages or something, I found some pictures of him. And so I put them back up, and every time I see them, I just smile. And because I had felt like, oh, I made such a mistake with that relationship. I should have known better. I knew from the beginning. What the hell was I doing? And I beat myself up. But then it's like, no, I learned so much from that relationship. And I really love that guy. Doesn't matter that he doesn't get anything that I'm saying, or that he thinks A Course in Miracles might be of the devil. It doesn't matter, because yes, Karen loves all the same. And so when I see that picture of him, I go, that's why I was with him, because I loved him. Because I loved him. And that relationship taught me to just love without conditions. Right. Love makes no comparison. You're right, Karen, because I just loved that guy. I thought I was meant to be with him, and I was for the time that I was. So that was the first relationship where I just didn't judge. I didn't judge anything about him. It was like, I noticed certain things that some I liked better than others, but it was like, so I just loved. And then from that relationship, I learned that I can do relationships as love in a holy relationship. I learned that from him. And that was a good one to learn it from, because he pushed a lot of buttons, and I never picked a fight with him. I just went inside and said, okay, he's pushing a button here. What's this about me? I feel abandoned by him. What's this about me? I must feel abandoned by God. And so anyway, I learned so much from that guy. And so when I see his picture show up on my screensaver, I just Savior. He is my Savior, right? He's my Savior. He's one of many Saviors. I just smile. And there's a lot of pictures on my screensaver of Rod. So Rod was an amazing teacher. This last relationship was a different guy. Rod was also an amazing teacher in a different way. And a lot of the pictures I have of him up there are of him and me with our grandchildren, because he was a stepdad to my daughter. And when the babies were born, all of them, he came up to see them. And he, when Rod and I stopped living together, it was the same year my daughter got married. And the first thing she said to me was, is Rod going to be able to make it to my wedding? Because she loved Rod so much, and he was such a stabilizing influence. And so I have all these pictures of Rod and the babies and me, and it's neat. It's really neat. So just symbols of love, symbols of love. Paragraph 2, lines 1 to 2. Who could feel fear in such a world as this? It welcomes you, rejoices that you came. And sings your praises as it keeps you safe from every form of danger and of pain. Who could feel fear in such a world as this? It welcomes you, rejoices that you came, and sings your praises as it keeps you safe from every form of danger and of pain. I needed that. That's why this book was opened to this lesson. Because I do get fears of aging. That's probably my biggest fear now, fears of physical health issues, and fears of aging, fears of being with somebody else who's also aging. And when Rod had all of his strokes, Rod was actually, he was 81, but all this up to that point, he was in total great health. There was one period where he went through that was rough, but just for about a year, but he was vibrant and he was vital. And that was one of the things that kept his daughter holding on when these doctors would say, no hope, no hope. Well, we would say, well, there's always hope because we're Course in Miracles students. But she kept saying, they don't know my dad. They don't know my dad. My dad is, he was her hero. And I get that because my dad was mine. But I do have fear that will rise up, and I will just quickly turn to the Holy Spirit with it. But this is key, that I don't have to feel fear, like even after, Rod, my heart could drop the body in the way that he did. Because I know there was a reason he did it that way. That was for him. Like I've said before, that was for him and his daughter. And I didn't have to be part of it, except for the 2 months I was there taking care of him. But who could feel fear in a world, in such a world as this? It welcomes you, rejoices that you came, and sings your praises as it keeps you safe from every form of danger and of pain. And Spirit is making this at me today, because I also, Spirit had me turn to chapter 31, section 6, recognizing the Spirit, which says what I said earlier, you see the flesh or you recognize the Spirit. There is no compromise in this. And then later on in that section, it talks about if you forgive, you see a world that's safe, a world that's stable, worthy of your trust, and a gentle, loving place to rest in for a while until you leave the body. And I needed to be reminded of that, because I'd been feeling like this world is not safe. The people you love die. Terrible illnesses happen that keep you stuck in a body and unable to move or talk for 7 months. And a lot of us are at the age where all the people around us are dying. I've had 4 die in the last year. But actually, with each one, this is what's happening, is my heart is cracking open even more. And I had prayed for that, to get over the belief in death and loss years ago. And that's when my partner dropped dead of a heart attack 5 days after I prayed that. But I'm still learning that lesson 6 years later. And we will keep learning it. As long as we're in a body, we keep learning and we keep expanding. And so I know that the love that I know that I am now, compared to 6 years ago, there's not even any comparison. No comparison at all. And I wouldn't take anything in the world. I wouldn't take these bodies back to not have this, to have this understanding, this knowledge of being the love. That's how powerful it is. So I will let go of the mic here, leave the room and come back into Pal Talk. And thank you, Karen and Sharon and Lynn, for your comments. And we'll see you guys next Monday. Hi, Dove. Bye, Dove. Thanks, Karen. See you guys.
Thank you so much, Lorri Coburn. And we'll